Right, welcome. So today I wanted to talk to you about how managing agents can or should be qualifying leads, i.e. resident management companies who are looking for a managing agent, but also how those mancos or those RMCs or RTMs should be qualifying those agents. It's one of those areas that pretty much no one talks about. From a managing agent perspective, we all want new business. We want to take on new blocks. We want to increase our portfolio, etc., which gives us better volume. It can increase our profits, our turnover, etc., and we can have a bigger business and grow. Now, that's obvious. That's what all managing agents want to do. However, you should be qualifying those leads and not taking everything you get. And there's a simple way you can do that, or there's a complicated way, or there isn't a way. You just take everything you can get, which from what I can see often is what people do, but I think that's a mistake. So but also there's the other side. If you're a RMC or an RTM and you're looking for a new agent who's got to take over the development and deliver something better than whatever you're getting now, that's fine. That's happening all the time. According to Google, there's hundreds, even thousands of searches every month of people looking, groups of residents, resident management companies, RTMs, looking for new agents, which means there's this constant search and there's this constant change, which is great in lots of ways if you're an agent, and it can be negative. But I want to talk about qualifying leads. So typically what will happen is someone will email us, phone us, or contact us through the website. Somehow they'll contact us and they'll say, hey, we're a block of flats, 20 units, 100 units, whatever, and we're looking to change managing agents. So I say, great, I'm glad you found us. And they typically will ask me a bunch of questions. But before I get into their questions, I sort of have my own. So I have my own qualifying questions. And often, sometimes they even send me a list of the questions right up front and go, we're looking to change agents. This is what we want. These are the questions we want answers to, etc. And I'm sort of like, whoa. Okay, just back up a minute. You've just sent that first email. We haven't spoken on the phone. I'm not just going to answer your questions and spend 2 hours doing it. Because I've got my own questions. And before I get to that stage, I'm going to try and qualify you. And what I really do is I ask them 3 questions. And it's not only because there are only 3 questions. I could ask them 10, I could ask them 20, I could ask them endless questions. But right up front, I want to ask them 3 questions which will help me decide if they might be a potential match. And what I mean is a potential client that we're happy to take on. I'm not just going to take on any client, bring that client into the business, and they're an absolute pain in the arse. And it's not worth what the contract's even worth. We spend more time, energy and effort trying to service a client that was never the right fit and we're never going to make happy. It doesn't make sense to us, it doesn't make sense to them. So I have to try and qualify them. And what I typically ask is, how did you find us? Now, although that isn't necessarily a qualifying question, it's important for me to know how they came to us, whether it was referral, word of mouth, Google, some kind of other directory, or they search for us through Google or any other way that they might have found us, and or one of the Armour or so on, because we want to know regards to our sales or our marketing activities in terms of what's working. So that's an important question. It's not really a qualifying one, but I ask it up front. And also I might have to thank someone because it could have been, they could have referred someone or a contractor and I want to thank them. Anyhow, the second question is, what are the three things you're not happy with in regards to your current situation with your managing agent? 3 things, top 3 things. Now, often the list is long. There could be 20, 15, but I want the top 3 things. And what are the top 3 things you want out of a new managing agent? Now, it's a very basic question. It's a little insight for me into where they are, what's going on, etc. It also aids the conversation, that when we do have a conversation on the phone, I already have an understanding of what their problems are. I also have an understanding of what they really want. And I can sort of figure out if I think we can offer that solution, or if we're the right type of company. Or I might probe more into whatever they say. But it's certainly a good conversation starter. Now, I'll give you an example of how I might qualify them and not want to take them on as a client. So I might get and it's happened before more than once, several times, where someone's gone, we're actually not dissatisfied with a managing agent, they're doing okay, but we really want to save some money and make it cheaper and pay their service charges. So we really want an agent who can sort of screw down the contractors, bring the price down, etc. And I sort of say, well, is there anything wrong with the contractors at the moment? Are they performing well? Is it a good service? Are you not happy? And they're like, no, we're happy with everything. We just don't want to pay as much. We want it to come down. So this is the sort of, for me as an agent, this is the sort of question that I'm going, this isn't the sort of client that I want. Because a client that wants to screw down someone on price, even when they're happy on the service, is I'm not. It's not something that I'm going to want to do, because it's not just about money. Now, for the client, it is. That's fine. I don't judge them. They want to pay less. I'm not judging what they want. But I just don't think we're the sort of agent that's going to help you do that. There's plenty of agents out there who they're like, this is what we do anyway. We're just going to screw everyone down on price, get it down to the bottom it can be, pay minimum wage and everything, pay the cheapest on everything, and we'll get that price right down. You'll be happy, and it's a win-win. Now, that's fine. They find that agent, they do that job, everyone's happy, perfect little marriage, right? But for us, that's not what we want. So, and we're not the sort of agent who'll want to do that. So again, that's the sort of thing that I go, okay, I don't think we're going to be the right type of company. How equally, I get to understand also what it is they want in terms of service. And is it the value? Is it then, it's not so much the cost, but it's in terms of what they're getting and the service delivery, performance, etc. And that gives me an indication in terms of where they're at. And it helps me understand, again, if we can find a solution for them. So those questions aid me in qualifying them, so if we can proceed. And if they then have 30 questions, 40 questions, or they've got a tender process and they want us to go for it, and they ask us, are you interested? I can make an informed decision, yes I am, based on us having that having that conversation, understanding a bit more about them, and we can move forward. Or I can just go, look, I don't think it's for us, and these are my reasons why. However, the flip side to that coin is if you're a resident management company or an RTM, you need to make sure that when you ask questions, you have a reason. So likewise, I have 3 questions to qualify. Now, I appreciate if you're an RMC or an RTM, you're going to have more than 3 questions. However, you need to make sure when you ask a question, there is a purpose, not because you've got it off the leasehold advisory service or you've downloaded something from the internet that says you should ask a potential managing agent these questions. And I'm going to give you an example. And this is not, and I'll be quite honest, I actually quite like the leasehold advisory service questions, which is a list of about 30, 40 questions that they ask. Generally, I like the ethos, the idea behind it. But I do find some of the questions a bit pointless because I don't really know what they're getting out of the answer. So I'm going to give you an example. So if we get asked to tender 34 questions, we put it in a nice little booklet, something like this. This is a bit of an old one. But question 2 out of 35 questions, how close are your offices to the property? Okay. They're round the corner, they're 5 miles away, they're 100 miles away, they're in another planet. With all due respect, in today's world, and forever in terms of block management, I don't see the point of the question. Now, there's this thing that people believe that the closer you are to the site, somehow that's better. I don't know where this came from, I don't know why people think it, but 99.9% of what a managing agent does for that development is done in an office. It's not done on that site because 100% of what happens, 99.9% of what happens on the site is not done by the managing agent. It's done by third-party contractors. So having an agent who happens to be right by it, round the corner, in close proximity, wherever, but close by, isn't this great advantage over somebody else, because it makes no difference how close I am. Because if I can't perform, if I don't answer the phone, if I don't deliver on the things I say I will, if I'm, bad with communication, or we get loads of complaints and we don't manage things quickly and repairs build up and we're slow to react and we don't have a strategy in place for maintenance, etc. It doesn't matter how close we are. So this myth of being close, but that question's number 2. Now, I'm not saying these questions are in order of key priority, but I just find it a strange question. So if you're downloading those questions and you're going to ask a managing agent it, don't ask it because it says so. Decide that you need to know the answer, and why do you need to know the answer? Because otherwise it's a pointless question. So if you're going to ask a managing agent a question, you must have an objective. There's got to be a reason behind it, and you've got to know why you want to know the answer. So question the questions. Don't just take the questions and spit them out, get this back and go, oh, well, yeah, they're pretty close, so yeah, that's pretty good. Or they're a bit further away, I'm not too sure about them. It's just not a measuring stick. It's the most ridiculous measuring stick you could ever have. if you're trying to choose a managing agent, is how close they are. It just will never make sense to anybody. You can convince yourself that, oh, they're nearby, they can get there, they can react quick if something happens. If the agent has to go to the site for any reason, the agent will go to the site. Simple. Whether they're 5 minutes away, 5 hours away, it doesn't matter. But the point is, they will go, and that's their job. Okay, so this whole thing about, oh, but they're really close by, you got to get past it. It's not an issue. It's not an issue. So again, you need to qualify the agent, which is great. You've got 30 questions. You've downloaded it from Leads Advisory Service. Brilliant. Lots of the questions are good, but you have to think about why you're asking these questions. Don't just blindly ask them. So I'm going to give you another example of a question. There's many. I can't go through them all. So there's things like about, this is a good one up front, how many staff in your company are involved in residential property management? Now, forgive my ignorance, but I don't know what that question means. Because if I'm a block management company and you've approached me to provide block management services, we all are. Or have I misunderstood the question? Maybe it's just me. So anyway, but again, even if I've misunderstood the question, I don't quite know what they're getting. If for example, we were an estate agent, but we did block management and we did lettings and we done sales, it might be that they're referring to that residential block part. We might have 10 people, but only 2 people deal with block management. So maybe, but again, is that a question to qualify or measure, shall we say, not qualify, measure if someone is good? Because remember, this is a tender process. The idea of these 30 questions is it's a tender process. So when you're asking that question, you're then measuring, when you analyze the answers, are they a good agent? Are they someone we could use? But I don't see how that question helps you decide that. That's my opinion as the agent. I don't see what it does to help. Now you might say, what's your staff ratio? Now that's a great question per unit, because this and it's ironically not in the 35 questions, but it's a really good question. It gives you a picture of how many staff versus property in terms of portfolio that they have, and you could measure that at minimum against what you've got at the moment. So if you have a managing agent and they have 1,000 units, or let's say 10,000 units, and they've got 50 staff, you can simply do the maths and go, per property there's X amount of staff, and if you had a managing agent with 2,000 units and had 20 staff, you could easily work out that their staff ratio is much higher than new agent or some of the agents you're looking at, which gives you some confidence that they're not short-staffed, that they've got good resources, etc., etc. But again, that question's not in there. So I just think that by all means use it as a guide, but I think you should consider your own questions, and they can be absolutely specific to your development and your needs, because that's ultimately the point. Don't just take this blanket view and spit out these questions, because for me it makes no sense. I only ask 3 because I don't need to know anything else before I qualify them. I'm not asking 3 because 3 is a magic number. I'm not asking, it's not like it's not NLP. I'm not trying to get them to, it's not like give me the top things because I want them to try and, the process is simple. I've asked 3 questions purely on the basis there is only 3 questions that I want to know. Okay, so that's what I've decided as our process. It might not be good enough for someone else, but for me, it helps me understand door and move forward. But again, the other side is, one of the reasons why, if you're the managing agent and you're sort of flipping around again, wanting to qualify the income in the RMC or the RTM, is because you need to see if it's a good match. It's pointless taking on site after site from agent from another, a development after development, and you haven't qualified them. And 5 minutes into that relationship, you hit roadblocks, you hit trouble. You realise there's a lack of rapport. You realise actually you don't quite get on with these directors. You don't quite see eye to eye anyway, because you have a different idea about how you should manage blocks and they have a different idea. But you kind of put that to one side because it's a nice contract, or you want the money, etc., etc. Again, it's like this false economy for both parties, and it's a mistake. It ends up sucking up loads of time, loads of energy, and it ends up cost you. I can't believe you'd make money out of a contract that does that, because in the end, if that happens, It's stressful, time consuming, and I just don't think it's as profitable as you think. So again, I think qualifying the leads when they come in is important, and you have to learn how to say no. So a few years ago, Daniel Priestley told me a story about if you want to buy a Rolex watch. No, actually, I'll tell you the story about the Ferrari. If you want to buy a Ferrari, so you go into a Ferrari showroom, and this, most people won't know this or won't have had this experience, and I even myself haven't, but I'm just taking it in good faith. And you go into a Ferrari showroom and say, I want to buy a car, I want to buy a Ferrari. Now, they have a sales process. Now, they might say, you might say, I want to have a test drive, and they're like, well, I'm really sorry, sir, but there's a waiting list. You can't just walk in, you've got to book it in, etc. This is what happens, this is how it'll work. And they have a process that you have to follow. You can't just go in and buy. And the point of that story is that you as the agent have to have a process, and regardless of what the customer wants, yes, you can slightly bend, yes, you can slightly accommodate and try and be flexible, but in the end your process has to be the process that is followed, and you have to let them know what it is up front. Now, some people say to me, I can't do that because it's not normal, it's not what happens in my industry, I can't do it, etc. You can, you just don't do it. And what I find is that you've got to tell people what your process is up front. So when people come to me for the first time and they say, I've got these questions, I'm interested in a new managing agent, I say to them, cool, thanks for contacting us. We're really glad you found us. Look, I've got some questions. I've got 3 questions that I need to ask. This is our process in terms of how we engage, and this is our onboarding process. So they know up front. There's no, and sometimes I get some people go, oh, I'm not going to do that. I haven't got time to answer your questions. And I'm straight away like, well, if you haven't got time to answer these questions, we can't really help you. Good luck. You really need to look for another agent. We're probably not the right company for you. And that often gets a bit of a surprise. They're like, oh, what? You know, oh, like thinking everyone's just going to like give them, and they're surprised that we take that position. The reason why we take that position is because they can't dictate our process. Like I can't go into a Ferrari car showroom and say, I want to test drive now, and I'm a customer, you should do what I say, I'm paying, you do whatever I say. It doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work like that. It can work like that in your business. It can be that you let potential customers come in, dictate your process, waste your time, your resources, and they don't even sign on the contract. And even if they do, they could be an absolute nightmare client. And that's why it's a mistake. The whole point of having your own sale process is to filter and to determine if these are people you or companies, etc., that you want to work with. So it's an important step. It's not just, oh, rub my hands, I'm getting more money, excited, oh, 20 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand a year, brilliant, can't wait. It's just short, trust me, that even 50, 100, whatever to you is a big contract, will be the bane of your life, and you'll wish you never had it. So it's important to filter, it's important to choose well, and it's important to have a process. Let your potential customer know and try and stick to it. Don't be afraid to stick to it, because otherwise you'll end up with clients you don't want. And you'll have clients who have got managing agents they don't want. It's just a lose-lose scenario. So that process of qualifying both sides will hopefully mean that you have a higher chance of having a successful working business relationship with each other. And that's what everyone wants. No one wants a short-cooked, lived contract. They want to be happy and it to go on and on for many years, and that's what we're all trying to do. So qualifying both sides works. Thank you. Thanks for listening. Hope you found it useful. If you do share it, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.